Greetings, this is Brother Eli with another episode of Bible Truth Revealed. Today's teaching is entitled, The Blood Transfusion Deception. That is, the blood transfusion deception. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there are nearly 11 million blood donors and more than 14 million units of blood transfused in the U.S. annually. These numbers are exceptionally high because most people have been duped into believing a false dilemma. Take the blood transfusion or die. A false dilemma arises when we allow ourselves to be convinced that we have to choose between two and only two mutually exclusive options, when that is not true. So, there are other options, but we are manipulated into choosing between only two options. In this case, the options are, we can either take the blood transfusion or we can die. The practice of blood transfusion did not exist when the Holy Scriptures were written. Therefore, many people think that the Scriptures have nothing to say about this practice. However, the Most High gave very clear instructions about how His holy people should deal with blood. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 23 to 25. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 23 to 25, and I will be reading from the Brenton Septuagint translation. It says, Take diligent heed that thou eat no blood, for blood is the life of it. The life shall not be eaten with the flesh. Ye shall not eat it. Ye shall pour it out on the ground as water. Some people readily acknowledge that it is forbidden for Israelites to eat blood. But as there is no mention of taking it directly into our veins, they claim that blood transfusions are acceptable. They say that as long as we don't eat the blood, anything goes. Does that mean we can drink the blood of animals? Drinking is not the same as eating. How about if we make it into a powder and snort it like cocaine? Is that okay? Of course not. Verse 25 says, Thou shalt not eat it, that it may be well with thee, and with thy sons after thee, if thou shalt do that which is good and pleasing before the Lord thy God. The Most High does not want us to take someone else's blood into our body. He said that if we obey this commandment, it will be well with us and our children after us. The opposite is also true. If we disobey this commandment, it will not be well with us or our children after us. That's because our blood would be contaminated, mixed with the blood of another. The Most High hates mixing. It is an abomination. So again, the Scripture speaks of eating the blood, but the idea, the principle, the spirit behind the law is that we must not take the blood of another person or animal into our bodies. The National Center for Biotechnology Information has an article on its website entitled Infectious Complications of Blood Transfusion. under the subheading Issues of Concern, Quote 1 says this: transfusion-transmitted infection risks are numerous. There are numerous risks in transfusion and can be characterized as bacterial and non-bacterial. Quote number 2 says, bacterial infection stemming from transfusion is a significant cause of morbidity and mortality and has historically been underappreciated. So what is the meaning of morbidity? In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the medical definition of morbidity is the incidence of complications or undesirable side effects following surgery or medical treatment. So this quote is saying that bacterial infection stemming from transfusion is a significant cause of complications or undesirable side effects following surgery or medical treatment. The word mortality is defined as the death of large numbers, as of people or animals. So large numbers of people die as a result of the bacterial infection stemming from blood transfusion, and this has historically been underappreciated. In other words, they keep it hush. Quote number 3 says, regarding transfusion complications, bacterial septicemia remains the 4th leading cause of death in the United States. The 4th leading cause of death in the United States. In the Encyclopedia Britannica, under the heading Blood Transfusion Medical Procedure and subheading Transfusion-Induced Immune Reactions, Quote 1 says, blood components can also cause non-specific immune suppression of the recipient. The mechanism for this is not known, but many studies have claimed that transfusion therapy can reduce a recipient's resistance to cancer and infection, especially bacterial infection. So even if the recipient or patient survives the blood contamination that is known as blood transfusion, their immune resistance to cancer and infection can be significantly reduced. This means that the patient is very likely to have serious health issues following a blood transfusion. This is exactly what we read before about a significant cause of morbidity. You will never be the same again following a blood transfusion. And as they said in the quote, the mechanism for this immune suppression is not known. They do not understand why it's happening. It's happening because we're not supposed to mix our blood with other people's blood. That's why it's happening. The quote continues, complications from immune suppression can be prevented by reducing unnecessary blood transfusions. Unnecessary blood transfusions, and by using autologous, which means self, blood components when appropriate. In other words, use your own blood. There are ways that you can have surgery using your own blood. You do not need to use the blood of anyone else. And this is the key: reducing unnecessary blood transfusions. Have you ever considered whether blood transfusions are even necessary? If not, ask yourself, why not? It's because we've been presented with the fallacy that we have only two options: take the blood transfusion or die. If blood transfusions or death are not our only options, what other choices do we have? Pay close attention to the following clip from Johns Hopkins Medicine.
Every year in the U.S., patients receive 21 million blood transfusions. What if there was a better solution with significantly improved outcomes?
So nearly every surgical procedure involves some degree of blood loss, and traditionally we give patients blood from the blood bank. However, another option exists, which is called bloodless medicine and surgery, where we use alternatives to transfusion.
Techniques performed before, during, and after surgery result in minimized blood loss, faster recovery, fewer infections, and quicker discharge. Bloodless medicine eliminates the need for blood transfusion, thus avoiding the dangers of allergic reaction, contamination, and the possibility of receiving the wrong blood type.
At this point, you might be asking yourself the question: what will happen to someone who has taken a blood transfusion? Leviticus chapter 17, verses 10 and 14. That's Leviticus chapter 17, verses 10 and 14. It reads thus: And whatever man of the children of Israel or of the strangers abiding among you shall eat any blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eats blood, and will destroy it from its people. Verse 14. For the blood of all flesh is its life. And I said to the children of Israel, Ye shall not eat the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is its blood. Everyone that eats it shall be destroyed. In biblical times, the only way to get another person or animal's blood into your body was to ingest it. In other words, by eating or drinking the blood. Nowadays, the oppressor has convinced the world to take other people's blood into their veins. The Most High hates mixing. So mixing someone else's blood with your own is an abomination. Anyone who takes a blood transfusion, whether they be an Israelite or a stranger, will face the consequence of that decision. The consequence is a significantly increased risk of morbidity, which means illnesses, and mortality, which means death. In other words, the consequence is destruction. On themindsjournal.com, there is an article entitled Blood Transfusions Might Alter Your Personality. New research raises questions. Quote 1 says, a body of research suggests that blood transfusions might alter your personality and have the potential to impact the recipient's personality and behavior. Although this phenomenon remains a topic of debate and further investigation. So when you take someone's blood or life force in your body, it can change your personality. It can change your behavior. Quote 2 says, in 2018, scientists from the University of Geneva conducted a study involving 7 participants, the majority of whom acknowledged the potential for transfusions to induce changes in their behavior and values. Changes in their behavior and values. If you value the things of the Most High, you will not take blood transfusions, because blood transfusions can induce changes in your behavior and values. You may go from loving the Most High to hating the Most High, from keeping His commandments to rejecting His commandments. It continues. The study revealed that 3 patients believed that their transfusions might have influenced their own behavior and values. These findings hint at the intriguing notion that certain personality traits of the blood donor could be transmitted through the transfusion process. The life of all flesh is its blood. The Most High made that perfectly clear. Therefore, whether we eat, drink, or transfuse someone else's blood into our veins, we are taking on that person's life force. This is why so many people experience changes in their behavior, their values, and their personality after taking blood transfusions. I personally know an Israelite lady who used to serve the Most High only and keep His commandments until she decided to accept blood transfusions. After her surgery, she developed a taste for blood and started eating bloody meat. Finally, she rejected the Most High and stopped keeping His commandments. Now her end is destruction. The Most High warned us about this when He said, I will even set my face against that soul that eats blood and will destroy it from its people. Even the oppressor is now warning others about the dangers of blood transfusions. Listen closely to this video clip from the National Blood Authority of Australia.
It really is a sobering thought when one considers that allogeneic blood transfusion has the potential for a wider range of adverse clinical outcomes than probably any other medical intervention.
After considering all available evidence on transfusion and outcome, we are left with the conclusion that transfusion is a major multiplier of morbidity and mortality. Maintaining the status quo, as we see in transfusion practice today, would just not be accepted or tolerated in any other field of medicine in the context of current safety and quality standards.
Rather than falling for the false dilemma of choosing between blood transfusion or death, we must educate ourselves on this sensitive subject so we can make well-informed decisions long before we find ourselves in a potential life or death situation. And just in case you are wondering if it is okay to donate blood, the answer is no. And with that, I say, Shalom.